Okay, hello, we're going to get started. Welcome. My name is Emily Loeb, and I'm the Director of Programs and Education at the Holocaust Center here in Pittsburgh. And as many of you know, our mission is to connect the horrors of the Holocaust and anti-Semitism with injustices of today. And as a granddaughter of Holocaust survivors, I want you to know that I really appreciate your presence here today to bear witness to and hear tonight's program with Albert. At the Holocaust Center, we believe it's critical for people to not just study history, but to connect it to real people and families. And I actually just got a text message from my family's friend in Germany, in the town that my grandmother was from, and where they do an annual commemoration program. And this year throughout Germany, one of the projects that they've been doing is creating holograms and projections of the synagogues that were destroyed on Kristallnacht. And in my grandmother's hometown in Geilenkirchen, they projected that up on the walls where the synagogue used to be in Germany, and they did that in conjunction with the high school that my grandmother actually attended. So it's really powerful work that we're doing, and I really appreciate that you guys are all here. This is our second night of Kristallnacht programming. Last night we participated in a powerful collaborative event with Violins of Hope and numerous other community partners, where we not only acknowledged Kristallnacht and what was lost in the Holocaust, but also celebrated the power of hope through music and spoken word. And tonight marks the 85th commemoration of Kristallnacht, which was the night of broken glass when the German government orchestrated a series of violent attacks on Jews throughout Germany, as I mentioned, including my own family. And 5 years ago, I got to spend Kristallnacht in my grandmother's hometown, and where I was just explaining, they do really deep remembrance work, and I'm honored to be able to be here with you all this evening. I hope you picked up some of the materials about our various upcoming events and programs that we have out at the table. If you didn't, make sure to grab some on your way out or visit our website where we have everything listed. And finally, I have a lot of people to thank for helping make this evening possible. I want to extend a big thank you to Edgar Snyder, who generously supports our Kristallnacht programming. And tonight's talk is also the first of our 3 Elizabeth Sylvian Memorial Lectures. This was established by Dr. Maria Kovacs, and these talks will address issues related to the Holocaust, including lessons still to be learned and implications for the 21st century. And the Holocaust Center is part of the New Tree of Life, and they provide support for this and all of our other programming. And finally, I want to express my gratitude to my fellow staff members who were outside in the front this evening, Christina, Julia, Marcel, and Noah. And they put a ton of time and energy into making our events and programming possible. We're able to provide our programming to the public because of generous supports from donors and foundations and from our community members. And as a nonprofit, we rely on donations to be able to do our work, and we greatly appreciate that. And so you can stop by your table on your way out, or visit our donation page if you'd like to support our work. And you can also reach out to me or any of my colleagues if you have questions. So now I'd like to introduce a good friend to the Holocaust Center, Judy Robinson. Judy is a talented poet and artist. We have her art up in our exhibit here in the library, and she's going to read a new poem that she wrote in response to the attack in Israel by Hamas on October 7th. So I'm happy to have her join me. Thanks.
Thank you, Emily, and good evening, everyone. I'm going to read a new poem. Actually, this poem was published at the Times of Israel, the Israeli partner of our Jewish Chronicle. And the only thing I want to tell you about the poem before I read it is that it has a postscript, a PS, like you find at the end of a letter. It's called Rage, in remembrance of the October 7th massacre. It disturbs this slanting light yellow and rapturous, and once a part of promise, mocking now and strange, these sighing palms that stirred with expectation. How like betrayal, the stillness of desert flowers, quiet, beautiful, unfaded. I was not an alien here. I was as one with the light, the palms, the cactus. Why did the earth I loved not cry out for me as my life's blood was sought and taken? And the postscript is, what will this world do when there are no Jews left to kill? Thank you.
Thank you, Judy. And now I'm inviting up Michelle Cox, who's a friend and a local Holocaust educator, to introduce tonight's program.
Thank you, Emily. Good evening. My name is Michelle Cox, and it is my honor, to be here tonight to introduce our speaker, Albert Farhy. My interest in the Holocaust began when I had taken a class at Slippery Rock University in the year 2000. When the class was over, I still needed to know more. So I found every reading and teaching resource that I could and devoured them. I also have attended every event, training, seminar that the Holocaust Center has offered when I'm able to. Excuse me. I'm a 4-time attendee of the Belfer Conference through the United States Holocaust Memorial Museum. I've also been to Auschwitz and Birkenau twice, as well as Terezin and Lidice, among other related areas in Europe. Enough about me. Let me tell you about the man we are all here to see. Albert Farhy was born in Sofia, Bulgaria in 1929. At the age of 13, he was forced into a ghetto, then almost sent to a concentration camp before Bulgarian officials stepped in to prevent his deportation. Tonight, Albert will join the Holocaust Center of Pittsburgh's Director of Programs and Education, Emily Loeb, for a conversation discussing topics including his life before and during the Holocaust, his rescue at the hands of the Bulgarian officials, and the presence of music in his life. Without further ado, it is my honor to introduce Holocaust survivor Albert Farhy.
Here, Albert, this way. Okay, thank you. Do you have your thing on? Here. There we go. Thank you. So Albert wanted to start by giving a history of Bulgaria for those who maybe don't know. So would you like to start?
Okay, thank you everybody for coming tonight. I was born in Sofia, Bulgaria in 1929. This makes me 94-year-old. Bulgaria, the story of Bulgaria during the Holocaust is unique from all the other stories about the Holocaust, because the entire Jewish community in Bulgaria survived the Holocaust inside of the borders of Bulgaria, thanks to the Bulgarian people. The Holocaust started in the Second World War, but I would like to speak about the Bulgarian history prior to that, in order to understand the Bulgarian nation, why they had this attitude toward their minorities and did not let us to go to the death camps. Bulgarians came from Asia and settled on the Danube Delta, and they crossed the Danube River and fought with the Byzantines centuries ago and settled in the area where is Bulgaria today. They have history of kingdom, many kings for centuries, until the Ottomans came and took over the Byzantine Empire, the eastern part of the former empire, which split between Rome and Constantinople. They took over the Byzantine Empire, the whole Middle East. The Ottomans took over Turkey, Palestine, Syria, Lebanon, and in Europe they reached to Austria, Vienna, but did not enter into Vienna. They stopped there. They took also over Bulgaria and the former Republic of Yugoslavia, and up to Albania. The whole area of southeastern Europe was under the Ottomans, the Turks. The Bulgarians were for 5 centuries, 500 years, under the occupation of the Turks, which at the last century of the occupation became impossible. They had laws against the Bulgarians, that's terrible laws. I remember one of the laws, it is in Turkish called dish hakkı, means tax for using your teeth. A Turk can go to any Bulgarian village and ask to be fed. And after they feed him, he will ask to be paid for using his teeth to eat the food of the Bulgarians. To such extent, they were unfair. So the Bulgarians suffer a lot under the Ottoman Empire. They tried to free themselves. They were fighters in the Balkans, but they couldn't do it. The Russian Tsar Alexander II sent his army and pushed the Ottomans to Turkey, what is today's Turkey. So Bulgaria has been free country for less than 150 years ago. They lost the king. They have kingdoms, but the king's line disappeared. So they wanted a new king, and they invited a prince, German prince from the Coburg dynasty, to become the Bulgarian new king. He accepted and became the king of Bulgaria. By the way, my mother met the king when he visited the town where she was living. She was a little girl, and they chose her to bring a bouquet of flowers to the king. He came in the Jewish area, and from the Jewish community they chose her to do that. The First World War came, and the king took Bulgaria on the side of Germany in the war. My father, after his high school, had to go compulsory service in the military. This was the law in Bulgaria. when the first war, instead of serving as a soldier, he went in the military academy to spend a 1-year service and become officer. When the first war came, he was drafted as officer, commander of machine gun units in the Macedonian front, fighting side by side with the German soldiers. The war was not necessary for Bulgaria, and the soldiers came to the capital to depose the king, King Ferdinand. He left the country and never returned. His son, Boris, became the king. He was very good person, very intelligent, and loved by the people. He didn't want to be king, but he didn't have choice. Then came the years when I was born, 1929. Hitler came, start coming in the 30s. And the anti-Semitism started to develop in Bulgaria. The waves of anti-Semitism spread all over Europe, coming from Nazi Germany, the beginning of Nazi Germany. I walking to school, I was going to Hebrew school, and walking on the streets, I saw graffiti on the walls, "Death to the Jews," and the Hitler sign put there. And my father knew that this is new for me, because I was born in this era, and maybe I would think that this has been all the time like that. The anti-Semitism existed all the time. And she wanted me to know that it is new for him. It is something that he never experienced before, the anti-Semitism in Bulgaria. He said we were like brothers, Jews or Bulgarians, we lived like it was no difference between us. So this was a lesson to me to know that anti-Semitism is something new. I was confronted on the streets from hooligans, anti-Semites, telling me, "Jew, go to Palestine. Jew, go to Palestine. We don't want you here," all the time, listening to this. And it was depressing. Another thing, my father had two hobbies. One is playing the violin, and the other was wherever there is a holiday, means that free day of the week, we'll take off to the mountain, walking on the trails. And once I was with him, I was 10-year-old, I think. One woman approached us and tell my father that I heard you talking that you're continuing to climb the mountain to the other stop. Can I join you? My father said, of course. And she said, but I have to tell you that I'm German and you're Jewish. Would you accept me? And my father said, of course. Beethoven, Bach, Mozart, Schiller, Goethe, all of them are Germans. Does not make any difference if you're German or not. This was good, very good lesson to me to hear my father saying this, not to hate a nation because of some political temporary action which is not right.
Can you speak a little bit about some of the laws in Bulgaria that that made Jews equal citizens in Bulgaria that you've talked about? You know how you talked about some of the laws that they set up in Bulgaria for that the Jews were considered citizens and how that
Oh,
affected?
yes.
Yeah.
The first constitution of Bulgaria had a clause that says that any refugee who comes in Bulgaria has the right immediately to become Bulgarian citizens. This is very noble thing against strangers. When they come to Bulgaria, immediately they become Bulgarian citizens. And many people came to Bulgaria. I know also in the 15th century in Bavaria, Germany, South Germany, Bavaria, were pogroms killing the Jews, and many Jews came to Bulgaria. Also from Hungary, the 17th century, the same thing happened. People came from Hungary. So the Bulgarians have a noble streak even in their constitution. As the influence from Germany was increasing, the Bulgarian government started to make laws restricting the Jews. The Jews, men between the age of 20 and 40, must go for work, hard work in the Bulgarian engineering units to build roads in the Bulgarian mountains. So my father was below 40 at the time, and he was drafted, but they require, if you're an officer, you wear your officer uniform. So my father had his uniform. He made new uniform and was in the engineering forces in charge of the canteen. And because of that, he was coming occasionally in Sofia to buy provision for the canteen, and I can see him. And one day, he was walking with his military uniform, and the German army came to Bulgaria just a few days before, and soldiers were coming across from us, marching. When they saw my father was husky looking. They did not see that he was just lieutenant, and saluted him very enthusiastically. And I told him, Papa, if they know that they're saluting a Jew, this was in 1941, when the concentration camps are working, killing the Jews daily and nightly. This was unusual. It was paradoxal for that time of the Holocaust, German soldier to salute a Jewish officer. After the person who represented Hitler in Bulgaria learned that there is Jews wearing uniform in the Bulgarian army, they forbid it. It was forbidden. But by that time, my father was already 40 years old and he came home. Another thing, what I remember, is the Jews have to make declarations, written declaration, like the income tax filing. All the possessions have to be declared, everything that you have. And then they ask, after you give the declaration, they ask you to give everything, all the valuables that you have, and they put them very wisely in the safe of the National Bank of Bulgaria. What I'm saying very wisely, because they knew that in other countries the Jews went with their valuables in the concentration camp, not knowing where they're going, and the Germans confiscated everything. So this way they were securing that if the Jews will go to the concentration camp, at least it will remain in Bulgaria, their wealth. As a boy, we were living in a building. Half of the people that owned the apartments were Jewish and the other half non-Jewish. But we live in peace and harmony with everybody. I had a friend my age, Bulgarian. With him we were playing soccer and everything else in the yard of the house, the backyard. But when the laws against the Jews started, I couldn't talk to him and he did not want to talk to me. Before that we were discussing the politics between France and Germany, the war, still Bulgaria was neutral. But when the laws against the Jews started, we stopped being connecting. He became Hitlerjugend, like the Hitler Youth Organization in Bulgaria was also. They called the organization the Bulgarian, the Defense of Bulgarian, the youth organization, Defenders of Bulgaria, defenders from the Jews. And they had uniforms and saluted the Hitler sign, just like the Hitler Youth. The first bombardment that we had was from the British bombardment the day when Bulgaria declared the war to the United States, England, and England, means joining the Nazi Germany. And I remember hearing the airplane and telling my father, I hear airplane. He said, no, there is no sirens. And then the policeman on the street start with his handgun because he saw the fire coming from the airplane, and then the sirens came. We learned later that this was the Fox, the nickname of the pilot, the head of the squadron was the Fox, because he was going over the houses with the airplane so close that the anti-air guns cannot hit him. And he put a bomb on the yard of the king, which was 1 block from our house. And it put in fire 1 tree. This gave him orientation where is the railroad station, because the railroad station was full with ammunition of the Germans going to take over Greece. And they bombed all night. I was hearing the explosions of the trains full with ammunition for the Greek front.
Can you speak a little bit about after Kristallnacht happened in Germany, how
Yes.
that then translated into Bulgaria?
Yes, this was prior to this, the Kristallnacht when began. We heard about it, and I was going to school and seeing the graffiti on the walls. And in one street where there were many Jewish clothing stores, the windows were broken and anti-Jewish slogans written on the walls. And this was on the way to the Jewish school when I was walking. And then I learned that the same thing happened in Germany, but not to such extent. It was, I call it mini Kristallnacht. Mini because it happened, somebody tried to imitate Germany and did it only in these streets. We were listening on the radio. I heard Hitler's voice speaking. My parents were bent over the radio because it was shortwave radio. Only on shortwave you can hear very fast, very far. And I was hearing his voice, mad voice, and I could understand only Juden, Juden, Juden repeated through the speech. Jews, the Jews, the Jews. So it was scary to hear. Later, the radios, the phones, we had phone. Not every house had phone, but we had phone. And the neighbors were coming to use our phone in case they needed. The Jews had no more right to have phones or radios, have to be given. One of the laws was that after 9 o'clock at night, you cannot have right to step on the street. In the morning, you have not right to go to the market before 10 o'clock. And this was during the war where everything was scarce. I remember something that I did not tell it to nobody, yes. Recently I remember the government wanted to prepare the feelings of the population in anti-Semitic feeling to have in preparation. And then they make a person to do something very wrong, a Jewish one, in the black market. The owner of the factory it was a soap out factory. In the 30s, he was 33-year-old, had 2 little girls. And somebody make him to sell him in a black market a lot of soap. And the cameras were there, everything, when the soap comes with 4 horses carrying big carriage full with soap. They took the picture, and I remember see it in the main newspaper and they said, those are the Jews that make the black market, and this is why people don't have soap and don't have food, because the Jews are the ones that are making all the problems. This was anti-Semitic maneuver to prepare the population.
Can you talk?
They were looking for somebody that knows the judge, the Supreme Court judge, the family of the accused. The penalty was death. So they wanted to save his life. So we're looking, they found that my father was friend with at school with the Supreme Court, the top judge in the Supreme Court. And my father wrote a letter to the Supreme Court to interfere to save the life of this person, of two little girls. And one Sunday, after my father wrote him the letter, the Supreme Court judge and his wife come to our apartment. And I remember they sat in the living room and I heard the conversation. He said, I cannot do nothing. I'm told to give him the death sentence. Means that their plan must work. The people who bribed the person to to make him to do the wrong thing. So they hang him. It was the Finci case. The name of the family of the person that was sentenced to death was Finci. So this I remember one thing. What you wanted to ask me?
Wow.
I'm carried away.
Yeah. Could you tell us a little bit about being sent to the ghetto when the Holocaust
Oh,
started?
yes. Now, before that, I would say something about the Metropolitan, the head of the Bulgarian church, Metropolitan Stefan. It was well known that the king and the Metropolitan like each other, and the Metropolitan had influence over the king. On the day of the literature, the Kirill and Methodi, who made the Bulgarian Cyrillic alphabet, the Bulgarians lost their written language after 5 centuries. So those two priests made a new alphabet, and it is celebrated once a year. All the high schools and other schools, they make march in front of the king and the diplomatic body from all the countries, representatives of different countries, including Germany. And the bishop have to give the blessing over the schools which assemble after the march in the big square next to the biggest cathedral in Sofia. And the speech the Metropolitan made included words that today we are missing part of our students. This is not good. Something like that. In front of the diplomats, he's talking about the Jewish students that are not forbidden to, that are not present because they're forbidden to attend public school. The Jews were not permitted to attend public school. And he received letters that he is accused of not liking too much Germany. And his answer was, I have been accused that I am not Germanophile. I don't like German people. This is not true. I like Albert Einstein, Friedrich Mann, Freud, Mendelssohn, you know, all the German Jews he cited. So he was very courageous person, and the Bulgarian church defended the Jews, not only by the bishop, but not only from the Metropolitan, but also in the largest city in Bulgaria, second largest city in Bulgaria, Plovdiv, where he defended. I'll mention it later. On March 10, 1943, the Jews support to be deported to the death camps. It was secret date between the Ministry for the Jewish Affairs and the SS. Nobody's supposed to know. But it leaked. It leaked, and a delegation of attorneys, Jewish and Bulgarian, went to the head of the Bulgarian parliament. Dmitry Peshev, to tell him about the deportation. And he said, those are rumors. I'm the first to know. I'm the head of the parliament. So he took the phone and called the railroad station, and they confirmed the train is there, will be leaving in 4 hours. The Jewish people of the town are already gathered in the yard of the high school. And he aborted the order. And he said the people to let go home. The same time, the bishop that I said I will tell later, he wanted to go inside the yard of the high school where the Jews were there, and the soldiers in front will not let him. He climbed over the fence and went to the Jews that are inside and tell them, wherever you go, I will go with you, and this train will pass over my dead body. I will lay on the rails. To such extent, the Bulgarians were defending their brethren from Jewish origin. So what happened is when the head of the parliament gave the orders, the people went home. He lost the job, but he was the only person from the fascist government that was not hung up later when the Russian army came and changed the situation in Bulgaria. Now, the Bulgarian ministry issued deportation of all the Jews from Sofia to smaller towns to the ghettos of smaller towns in Bulgaria. And we had to leave in 48 hours our home to go to smaller towns ready for deportation. I forgot to say that every Jewish home, the front door, supposed to have pasted a special form with the Star of David and the number and the names of people who live there. So this was preparation for deportation when they come, so nobody to hide behind, not to come out, so they will know how many people are in the apartment or the house and what are their names. Also, one of the laws was that Jews cannot have any business. They can work only as a photographer or electrician or something like that, but not to have business. So when we received the notice to which town to go, which railroad to take and to go, we had no choice. And to carry only 50 kilos. It was really like a chicken without heads. We didn't know what to take, what not to take. It was very strenuous time. So we left everything. A Christian friend of neighbors, Jewish neighbors, accepted to take our piano, and wherever we know if we know where we are, to deliver it. And this happened. So we were giving things, my violin, I gave it to somebody who came on the door. But the most important thing is, during this time, the neighbor, the Bulgarian neighbor, that her son was saluting the Hitler sign, and she expressed anti-Semitic remarks during the first bombardment when we were on the basement hiding from the bombs, that you, the Jews, are bringing this to us, this bombardment. It is the Jewish, always, wherever something happened, the Jews are the scapegoat. This has been always through history. This woman came to our door and asked my mother, "Can I help you anything?" "I'm sorry," she said. Like, "I'm sorry this is happening." Means that we don't like you, but we did not think that this will happen, really will happen, what we were thinking. And my mother said, "You cannot help anything, but one thing, you have a son," the older son was officer. "Maybe he can use the uniform of my husband, officer's uniform." And this woman said, "I will take it and will keep it. When you return, I will give it back." Miss, this was very important. At the moment when we know we are going out, and I was thinking, I was preparing to write my diary on the way to Poland. I did not know that it will be in animal trucks, cow trucks. I thought we'll be able to write, and I took ink, and it was at the time the fountain pen needs to be recharged or to write with deep ink into the ink. So I took ink and paper, and my mother emptied everything and put there some food, and somebody came for the Jewish working people in the engineering forces that they build the roads in the mountains. So we went in the railroad station, and we went in a town called Pleven, one of the biggest towns in the northern Bulgaria. We arrived there at night, and the president of the Jewish congregation was there, knew that trains are coming with Jews. He took us in his house. He gave us one room for 5 people, a small room for 5 people to sleep. But we were lucky. The next several days, more and more people were coming. And the living room, in each corner, one family. At night, you cannot go to the bathroom. You have to go through the bodies that are sleeping. It was a very difficult situation. And I was so thirsty to listen to classical music, and I will open the window, and from the Bulgarian area, the waves will bring somebody's classical music. I remember it is just like when you're hungry for food and somebody gives you a piece of food, you remember it.
Can you speak a little bit about your father playing the violin in the Jewish Symphony?
Yes, the Jewish community in Bulgaria was not very big. Bulgaria itself was only 6 million people. This was the population of Bulgaria at that time, 6 millions. The minorities in Bulgaria were Turks, mostly Turks, Armenians, who escaped from that during the persecution of Armenians in Turkey. It was a genocide in the beginning of the 20th century. And many Armenians came in Bulgaria. Gypsies and Jews. The Jewish communities was less than 50,000. And mostly they were not rich, but they were rich people also. My father was wealthy, lived in the center of Sofia, and one floor above us was the chief rabbi of Bulgaria living. Underneath of us was living the head of the musical academy, Bulgarian composer, with his family, and against him on the same floor a Jewish dentist. It was one attorney living next to the rabbi, the chief rabbi, and he was also very instrumental going to the head of the parliament at that time. He was famous attorney. I lost my thought.
You were talking about the violin that your dad
Yes.
played.
The Jewish community have JCC with podium for concert, for shows, and the Jewish community had weekly paper, 2 papers actually, and symphonic orchestra, in which most of the people were playing as a hobby, like my father, but there were also some professionals. And my father will take me for the rehearsals, which was very educational for me to see how first the strings, alone will practice with the conductor, then the strings and the blowing instruments, and then the drums, everything, the whole orchestra, how the music was built. And my father will come at night from his office and will practice the violin. And it was very interesting. It is not so pleasant to hear just playing, then counting pause that some other instrument is playing, then again practicing his parts. He was playing first violin. So they gave many concerts. And after the war, when Israel was reborn and the Jews, almost the entire Jewish community immigrated to the new country of Israel, the reborn country. And the Bulgarian government was communist government. It was the satellite republics of the Soviet Union. But this was the only communist country that cooperated completely with the Zionists. So not only during the war the Bulgarians were lenient with the Jews, but after they went to Israel, the relations between Bulgaria and the Jewish state remained very good. Remained during the communist regime and still remaining good. It was, except for one time, during the communist regime when they shut down our passenger El Al plane coming from France. In this airplane was a student who received his doctor's degree in France and returning to Israel. And I'm suspecting, nobody knows this, but I know that I will do it also. When the plane was coming between Macedonia and Greece, it is the point of Bulgaria, very close there, the corner of Bulgaria. Because I saw Sofia from Greece, from the height once, and this person maybe asked the pilot to go a little bit closer so he to see his birthplace. And this is where two MiGs came and shot the airplane over Bulgaria. It was, the plane was already leaving the border, trying to leave. But the airplanes did not, because they thought that somebody is taking pictures of the border between Bulgaria and Greece. It was very tense situation at the time, political, between the communists, the Cold War.
So before we want to make sure that we have time for questions for people,
The
but we're going to make sure we have time for people to ask you questions.
Yes.
But I have one last question, which, this year our theme for the Holocaust Center is rescue. And I know that the Bulgarian officials, you've talked about how they stepped in and helped you and your family and all the Jews of Bulgaria. So I was wondering if you could talk about that unique outcome for Bulgaria in World War II. That's that all the Jews were saved and how that was different.
Yes. There were manifestations during the persecution of the Jews. Bulgarians and Jews manifested, and at the time I was going to visit a friend, and I saw the manifestation, and the police is arresting the people, and one person on a horse, policeman on the horse with a whip, wanted to hit me. He thought that I'm from the manifestant going in one street, side street, and I hit in the entrance of a door, house door. The unions of Bulgaria, I think I mentioned it, they signed petition against the deportation of the Jews. In the fascist government, representative spoke that it will be shame for Bulgaria. It will be dark spot in the Bulgarian history if we leave them to leave Bulgaria, the borders of Bulgaria to death. We suppose not to let them leave Bulgaria. We can persecute them in Bulgaria, but not to leave them to death. And there were 42 congressmen, Bulgarian representatives, that signed petition against the deportation of Bulgaria. And this is in the fascist government, even fascist. They knew that the Bulgarians are good neighbors. My father was good officer. By the way, he received a medal for participating in the First World War during the persecution in the Second World War. So they did not discriminate Jews or not Jews that fought for Bulgaria. So the many petitions were, the Bulgarian people was active, the church was active. The church even sent a priest the day that we have to leave the house, maybe if we convert, we will save our lives. My mother said, no, Hitler is for the blood, not for the religion. If you have Jewish blood, this is the important, not the religion alone. So the Bulgarian church was also different than in other places. They were active. Once in the 60-minute show here years ago, they were interviewing one cardinal, I don't remember what he was, but they said in Rome how the Pope did not interfere to save the Jewish people from the Vatican to interfere to save the Jewish people in Italy. And the cardinal was answering that the German army was all around the Vatican. We cannot do anything. And I wrote a letter to the 60 Minutes that in Bulgaria the German army also was there, but the head of the church did to show that his support for the Jewish people. The Bulgarian king was invited several times to audience with Hitler. Hitler admired King Boris because his German language was perfect. And he was German, and he called him the fox because he knew how to say no without saying no. And this is what happened to the Jews. There is two opinions about the king among the Jews and others. One say that the king saved the Jews from death, another say the king did nothing. There is no documents of anything. But I am saying, if the king wanted to kill the Jews, if he was anti-Semite, for him was very easy to save himself in front of Hitler and just a signature to put. He did not do such thing. So after the war, the Jews in Israel make a monument of the King Boris. But the opposite people who thought he did not do nothing, so they took off the monument. What happened to the king? Hitler was inviting him for audience. He needed soldiers. First time, the king had pretext that I need the Jews because they're building roads in my country. I need their good working force to work. But after that, I need soldiers. Romania gave soldiers to Hitler in Stalingrad. He wanted Bulgarians. The king had a lesson from his father that the army came and wanted to depose the king because took him for a war that it was not. And Bulgarians are very thankful to the Russian nation for freeing them from the Ottomans. So it was two things that the king probably was, this is my speculation, that the king was puzzled what to do. And he procrastinated. In the last audience with Hitler, he had to wear mask because the airplanes at that time did not have other things for oxygen, to wear oxygen mask. And he came and developed 3 diseases. If you treat the one disease, the other will get worse. So he died a few days later. Obviously, I had a doctor in the ghetto where we were. It was a doctor Dr. Smiadowski, he was known there in this town of the ghetto. He told me, I heard he was telling to my parents the stories. He had two sons. One was pro-German, the other was pro-Western. And the pro-Western went in Germany, and when he came wearing the mask in the airplane, he was dead after he came. The same thing they did to the king. So this was the way the Nazis were killing known families, quality families.
What I think we'll do is close up the formal presentation, and we can
Okay.
go out to the lobby. And if people have questions, because I know that there's, it's 7:30, so we want to respect everybody's time that we had for tonight. And we really want to thank everyone for coming. And to Marika and to Edgar and all of you guys, thank you very much. And thank you, Albert, as well.
Thank you. And thank you.